After she lost control, someone found her body in France, but no one saw who left the room. When I first got the invitation from my brother, I genuinely thought it was a scam. Not the email itself. It came from his actual address, with Savannah's digital signature stamped at the bottom. But the contents were so absurd, so laughably out of touch, that my brain simply refused to believe it was real. I stared at the screen, rereading the message 3 times in a row, hoping I'd missed something. Maybe there was a zero too many, or I had misinterpreted the tone. But no, there it was, plain as day, in thick cursive font and gold-embossed lettering like some medieval decree. We are thrilled to invite you to the union of Damon and Savannah, an unforgettable 3-day celebration in Monte Carlo, beginning on June 14, 1998. As a treasured member of our inner circle, you're invited to join us for this once-in-a-lifetime experience. So far, it sounded dramatic, but not terrible. Damon had always been theatrical, and Savannah loved making everything look like a press release. I expected nothing less than some over-the-top venue, maybe a beach resort or a cliffside ceremony. But then I hit the part that made my stomach tighten. For just $58,400 per guest, your exclusive package includes 3 nights at the Chateau Lumiere, access to the private yacht gala, curated culinary experiences, luxury entertainment, and other bespoke surprises. Flights must be booked independently. Due to the high-profile nature of our guest list, all attendees will be required to sign a non-disclosure agreement prior to attendance. $58,400. No typo. No joke. I sat back in my chair and rubbed my face like that would help the numbers change. I had known Savannah came from money. Her family had some antique business in Vienna or Brussels or some other place with cobblestones and oil paintings. But this was pure insanity. Even for Damon, who once bought a $400 leather pencil case in high school because he thought it made him look presidential. Before I could finish wrapping my head around the lunacy, my phone lit up with a call from Marcy, my younger sister. I didn't even say hello. "Tell me you got that," I said. Her groan echoed before her voice even formed words. I'm still shaking. Is he serious? Is this real? I think so, I muttered. I mean, it came from his real email, and Savannah's signature was at the bottom. Who the hell charges their family to come to a wedding? She asked, sounding half angry, half horrified. And not like $100 for the food. 58 grand. Are they hosting it in the Queen's wine cellar? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. And we have to pay for our own flights. That's another grand or two. I could use that money to put a down payment on a house, she snapped. Instead, he wants us to drop it all on seafood towers and violinists. It only got worse when we brought it up to our parents. Dad almost dropped his coffee when he heard the number. Is the man high? He asked, staring at me like I had offered to fund it. Has he been kidnapped? Is this blackmail? Mom, surprisingly, was more measured. It's extravagant, yes, but Savannah's family is very prestigious. They probably expect a certain level of glamour. Glamour? Dad barked. This is extortion with sequence. Over the next 2 days, the family group chat slowly morphed into a cold war. Aunts, uncles, and cousins started replying in waves. Most pretended to be polite at first. Thanks for the invite. Or sounds lovely. But you could tell from the gaps between their words that they were stunned silent. Then came my cousin Drew. I'd rather sell a kidney than attend this wedding. That opened the floodgates. Aunt Nancy said she felt honored but couldn't possibly swing the costs. Uncle Lou compared it to being invited to a pyramid scheme. Grandma, who barely understood email, sent a reply that simply read, "What's NDA mean? Will I be naked?" By the third day, you could practically smell the smoke coming from the group thread. People were arguing over everything, from whether Savannah had lost her mind, to whether Damon was being manipulated, to whether anyone should feel obligated to go. Damon, for the most part, stayed silent. But that wouldn't last. Damon finally broke his silence after 4 full days of family chaos. And of course, he didn't just reply like a normal person. He dropped a 10-paragraph manifesto into the chat at 3 in the morning like he was sending out a political statement. The tone was dripping with guilt-tripping energy, and every line made my stomach twist harder. If you truly valued family, you'd understand what this moment means to us, he wrote. This isn't just a wedding. It's the beginning of a new legacy, one that deserves to be celebrated with grandeur and grace. By paragraph 6, he was basically accusing everyone who declined of being petty, small-minded, and jealous of what he and Savannah had built. By the end, he made it perfectly clear that attendance was not optional if you still wanted to be considered part of the future we're creating. Marcy called me 15 minutes after it went live. Her voice was calm, but I could hear that dangerous tone she only used when she was past the point of anger. "Did he just call us peasants in a suit?" she asked. "Feels like it," I muttered, still scrolling through the digital explosion. "And part of the future we're creating? Who the hell says that unless they're running a cult?" It didn't stop there. Savannah started messaging relatives directly. Several of our cousins forwarded us screenshots of her private messages, each one sounding more desperate and manipulative than the last. One of them said, "We understand not everyone can afford the full experience, but we didn't want to cheapen the day just to accommodate people who aren't willing to make the effort." Another one read, "We've curated something truly exceptional. If that doesn't speak to you, then maybe you were never meant to be part of it." Even our parents got hit with personal messages. Mom told me that Savannah had called her kind but naive, and Dad, bless him, got into a full-blown shouting match with Damon over the phone that ended with Dad slamming the receiver and muttering, "He can marry the damn ocean for all I care." That's when things started unraveling in public view. First came the vendors. Aunt Carol, who knows someone in European event planning, messaged the group chat saying she'd heard whispers that the wedding decorators had backed out due to a missed payment. Apparently, Savannah promised full payment by the end of the month, Carol wrote, but nothing came through. "They're pulling the plug unless it's settled by Tuesday." Within hours, someone else chimed in with a similar report. The caterers were gone too. Another person said the yacht company had quietly removed the event from their June schedule. It was like watching dominoes fall one by one, only instead of sympathy, everyone was cracking open popcorn. Meanwhile, Damon kept doubling down. He called me late one night, and before I could say anything, he launched into a monologue like he'd been rehearsing it in front of a mirror. "You don't get it, Clark," he said, his voice sharp with frustration. "This isn't just about money. This is about respect, about commitment. We didn't invite strangers. We invited family. We expected loyalty." I held the phone away from my face for a second, just to take a breath. "Damon," I said finally, "you're charging your family more than most people earn in a year to come to your wedding. And you're acting like we're traitors for not selling our kidneys to show up." He didn't like that. "If you actually cared," he snapped, "you would have saved, planned ahead, done whatever it took." "Dude," I said, trying not to yell, "I live in an apartment the size of a shoebox. I've got bills, responsibilities, a job that doesn't come with a blank check. What planet do you live on?" There was a long pause. "You're choosing comfort over family," he said, coldly. "You'll regret that someday." Then he hung up. A few hours later, Marcy texted me. She had talked to one of Savannah's former college roommates, someone who wasn't on good terms with her anymore, apparently, and what she found out made my skin crawl. Savannah was engaged once before, Marcy wrote, to a guy named Levi. Rich, successful. The whole package. He disappeared out of nowhere. Disappeared? I replied. No one knows exactly what happened. But get this, Savannah met Damon 6 weeks later. Like clockwork. That little detail stayed with me. Especially once the rumors started flying that Savannah's parents had taken out a massive loan to help finance the wedding, expecting that they'd recover it once enough guests paid for the package. Which meant that if people bailed, and they were bailing fast, the whole financial structure would collapse. At this point, half the original guest list had quietly ghosted. The number of people left on the RSVP list could have fit into a school gym, and most of those were Savannah's friends and mystery names no one recognized. Then the real blow came. Savannah gave Damon an ultimatum. Marcy called me, and her voice sounded like she'd just come out of a courtroom drama. She told him, she said, that he has to choose. It's either her or us. No more in between. I sank into my chair. She wants him to cut off the entire family? Everyone. Block mom. Block dad. Block us. She even told him that he needs to delete the group chat because it's toxic. I didn't say anything for a full minute. She gave him until midnight to decide. What's he going to do? I don't know, Marcy whispered, but I think he's actually considering it. I didn't expect the family group chat to stay quiet for long, but the silence that followed Damon's ultimatum felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. No one knew what to say. No one dared to ask what he had decided. We were all just waiting, checking our phones every 5 minutes like hostages waiting for a final verdict. Then, just before midnight, the message finally came. I'm calling off the wedding. That's all it said. No explanation. No apology. No punctuation beyond the period. Just a flat, emotionless statement that instantly lit the entire group chat on fire. Reactions flooded in within seconds. Aunt Marie sent 12 prayer hand emojis in a row. Cousin Leo posted a meme of someone throwing confetti in slow motion. Grandma simply typed, "What does this mean?" in all caps, 3 times in a row. Marcy called me so fast I hadn't even put my phone down yet. He actually did it, she said, breathless. He didn't choose her. I can't believe it, I muttered. I honestly thought he'd cave. I thought he was gone, she whispered. I thought she had him completely wrapped up. I didn't say anything. Neither of us did. We just sat on the line, listening to each other breathe, unsure if we should be relieved or bracing for the next disaster. Then the real storm hit. Savannah posted a thread on some early social platform, the kind of place where curated lives and veiled threats lived side by side. It started with one of those overly dramatic intros, like she was opening a memoir instead of airing dirty laundry. I just want to share my truth, it read. Marcy read the whole thing aloud to me over the phone, her voice growing flatter with every sentence. She claimed Damon had been emotionally manipulated by a toxic bloodline who never supported his growth. She said his family had bullied her behind closed doors and painted herself as some tragic figure abandoned by people who were too spiritually bankrupt to understand real love. It would have been funny if it weren't so dangerous. Because then came the screenshots. Selective, misleading, out of context, but just convincing enough that strangers online started picking sides. She posted a screenshot of Damon venting about Dad once, saying, "He never believed in me." She posted another of me, from over a year ago, where I had joked that Savannah looked like someone who yells at waiters. She blurred names, but not enough to really protect anyone's identity. Then, unbelievably, she launched a GoFundMe. Its title? Help Me Heal from Emotional Betrayal. She was asking for $20,000 to fund her recovery retreat, complete with spa photos, buzzwords like wellness restoration, and a link to her self-guided resilience workbook that looked like it had been designed in a Word document from 1993. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then Marcy called again, screaming. She's selling her own breakup as a brand. I mean, holy hell, she monetized her collapse. I checked the page and almost spit out my drink. Someone had already donated $300 with a message, "Stay strong, Queen." It wasn't just a breakup anymore. It had become a public performance. But while Savannah was busy reinventing herself as a wounded goddess, Damon was completely off the grid. He didn't answer texts. He didn't post anything. He didn't reply in the group chat, even when people begged him just to let them know he was okay. Then, almost 2 weeks later, he showed up. At my apartment. He didn't call first. He didn't even knock right away. I heard footsteps in the hallway, opened the door, and there he was, standing there with a duffel bag and a look in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not anger. Not shame. Relief. "I didn't know where else to go," he said quietly. I stepped aside and let him in. He dropped his bag like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He looked thinner, and not in a good way. His hair was messy, his eyes hollow, but his voice sounded like him again. "I told her I wasn't cutting off my family," he said, sinking onto the couch. She lost it. Threw a lamp. Screamed for almost 20 minutes straight. "What happened after that?" I asked, still stunned he was even there. She called me a fraud. Said I'd ruined her life. Said I'd wasted her best years. "Did you argue back?" He shook his head. "No. I just watched her. And for the first time, I realized I didn't recognize the person I was about to marry." We sat there in silence, both of us not quite sure what came next. "She said I was nothing without her," he added. "That without her, I'd fade back into being mediocre." I stared at him for a long time. "And what did you say?" He shrugged. "I told her she might be right." Then I packed a bag and left. The simplicity of it hit me harder than any dramatic blow-up ever could. The next day, Marcy came over with takeout. Damon didn't flinch when he saw her. He hugged her like a little kid who'd been gone too long. They didn't even speak for the first few minutes. Just hugged, and let whatever had broken between them start gluing itself back together. We had dinner like normal people again. We argued about music, laughed about our weird neighbor who always wore scuba gear to walk his dog. And for the first time in what felt like years, Damon wasn't performing. He was just existing. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. But Savannah had other plans. 2 nights later, she posted a new thread. This one wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. She accused Damon of being controlling. Claimed he erased her voice, whatever that meant. Then she dropped one last bomb. A series of cropped screenshots that made it seem like Damon had been talking to another woman during their engagement. He hadn't. I knew he hadn't. But that didn't stop the comments from rolling in, or people from sharing her post like gospel. Marcy, of course, was already 10 steps ahead. She started digging. She found out that Savannah had followed a plastic surgeon from Florida 3 weeks before the wedding was canceled. He'd started liking her posts before she ever went public about the breakup. And then, 1 month later, Savannah posted an engagement photo. Same forced smile. Same dreamy filter. Same ring. The same damn ring Damon had bought. I sent the post to Damon. He stared at it for a while, then handed the phone back to me. I guess she never returned it, he said. That was all he said. But the fire in his eyes had gone completely cold. By the time Savannah announced her new engagement, most of us had already tuned out her existence. We figured she would keep spiraling in private, maybe grift a few more dollars off strangers who still thought wellness meant crying into a sponsored bathrobe. But it turns out, Savannah wasn't done. Not even close. It started with a package left on Damon's doorstep one random Tuesday morning. There was no return label, no name, no note. Just a square black box, wrapped with gold ribbon like a funeral present for the rich. Inside was the ring. The one she had never returned. The one Damon had paid for. The one she had worn in that fake engagement post with Mr. Florida's surgeon. She had sent it back, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was what else was in the box. There was a Polaroid. It showed Savannah and Damon at a dress fitting, smiling. His hand was on her waist, and she was turned toward the camera with a frozen, pageant-like grin. But someone had scribbled across the bottom in red marker. You ruined it, and I'll make sure you pay. Damon didn't say anything when he saw it. He just quietly closed the box, placed it on the table, and walked out of the room. I didn't know if he was angry or just exhausted, but something in him was starting to shift. The next few weeks passed quietly, until something even stranger happened. Marcy called me in a panic one night, her voice trembling. Someone left a voicemail on my work line, she said. It was just breathing. What kind of breathing? I asked, already bracing for some stalker movie cliché. Slow, deliberate, like they wanted me to know they were there. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but 3 other cousins said the same thing the next day. Someone was calling from blocked numbers, leaving silent messages, sometimes just static, sometimes just 5 seconds of whispered laughter. It wasn't direct. It wasn't illegal, but it was creepy enough to keep people awake at night. Then the real bomb dropped. My cousin Elaine, who works in finance, got curious about how Savannah had been affording her new influencer lifestyle after the wedding collapsed. She did some digging. Nothing illegal, just public records, and found that Savannah's parents had quietly filed for a second mortgage on their property just 2 weeks after the wedding cancellation. According to Elaine, the amount was large enough to cover most of the unpaid vendor deposits, the venue penalties, and, get this, the yacht cancellation fee. So not only had Savannah tried to charge all of us $58,400 each for a wedding none of us wanted to attend, but when that plan backfired, she bankrolled the fantasy through her family's house. Marcy couldn't stop laughing when she heard it. She made her parents pay for the wreckage of a wedding she never finished planning. And now she's marrying a guy who posts about how alpha males don't chase. I added. We thought it was finally over. But then came the thumb drive. No envelope this time. No name, no note. Just a plain silver USB drive slipped into Damon's mailbox. At first, he almost threw it away, thinking it was some junk mail scam. But curiosity got the better of him, and he plugged it into his laptop. What he found stopped us all cold. The folder had just one file, a grainy video, taken from what looked like a security camera or a hidden phone lens. The footage showed Savannah in a cafe, sitting across from a man who clearly wasn't Damon. We recognized him instantly, Mr. Florida's surgeon. It was dated 3 weeks before the original wedding date. The timestamp didn't lie. They weren't meeting as friends. They were holding hands across the table, whispering close, and laughing in a way you don't laugh with someone who's just a comfort in a difficult time. They had been together the entire time. The wedding was never just a celebration. It was a scheme to fund Savannah's exit plan. Damon stared at the screen for a long time without saying a word. Then he clicked the video closed, removed the drive, and dropped it into a drawer like it was a dead insect. He didn't want revenge. He wanted silence. But silence didn't last. 2 days later, Savannah posted again. Only this time, it wasn't about betrayal or healing or femininity reclaimed. It was a long, meandering post about false accusations, about toxic masculinity, and about dangerous narratives being spread by bitter men who can't handle rejection. She never named Damon. She didn't have to. Everyone who had followed her since the wedding collapse knew exactly who she was referring to. And then, as if we hadn't already hit maximum absurdity, Savannah's new fiancé got involved. He posted a video. In it, he called Damon a weak man with a scarcity mindset and accused him of weaponizing his pain to attack a powerful woman. He wore sunglasses indoors, flexed his jaw a lot, and ended the clip by looking into the camera and saying, "Kings rise above the noise." Marcy almost broke her phone from laughing. "I'm sorry, was that a threat or a deleted scene from a shampoo commercial?" The best part? A week later, that same fiancé posted a quote graphic that read, "Real men protect their women with silence," and promptly deleted the video. Apparently, things weren't going so well in their perfect kingdom. According to someone who followed their accounts obsessively, Savannah started removing photos of him within 2 months. She stopped posting about love and started posting about lessons learned. One of her followers even messaged Marcy anonymously, saying they had seen Savannah screaming at her new fiancé in a Miami parking lot, throwing a purse at his windshield. "We didn't even feel vindicated anymore. We just felt tired." Damon slowly came back to himself. He started working again. He moved into a small rental and decorated it with secondhand furniture that didn't try to impress anyone. He started eating better, sleeping longer, walking more. One night, over drinks, he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "She made me believe I was lucky she chose me." He took a slow sip of his drink, eyes clear. "But now I realize, I was just a placeholder until someone richer showed up. I didn't say anything. He didn't need me to. We all thought it would end quietly." Savannah had been publicly humiliated. Her rebound engagement was falling apart, and the online sympathy she once weaponized was starting to fade. People stopped donating. Brands stopped responding. Even her followers had grown tired of her vague posts about growth through suffering. Damon was finally healing. He was going to the gym again, getting promoted at work, and even joined a hiking group, not for fitness, but just to be around normal people who didn't treat life like a stage production. He didn't talk about Savannah anymore, and we didn't bring her up. That chapter felt finished. Until it wasn't. It was a Tuesday afternoon, bright and warm, the kind of day that made you feel like nothing could go wrong. I was on my lunch break, walking past a newsstand, when something caught my eye. A local tabloid headline read, "Luxury scam wedding under investigation after anonymous tip-off." I stopped walking. Underneath the title was a grainy image that I immediately recognized. Savannah, dressed in white, standing on the balcony of a Monte Carlo hotel, holding a champagne glass like royalty. It wasn't from her failed wedding. It was a promotional photo she had staged during the early planning phase, when she was still pretending everything was real. The article claimed that European authorities were investigating a series of fraud reports linked to luxury event scams, involving several vendors who had never been paid, despite contracts and fake confirmations being issued in Savannah's name. Apparently, someone had filed an anonymous tip. The documents submitted included wire transfer screenshots, contract fakes, and even edited invoices, all connected to her. That thumb drive? It wasn't just the video. It had other files too, things Damon hadn't looked at. Someone had been building a case. I called him the moment I got home. His voice was calm, too calm. "Yeah," he said, "I read it already." "You think she's actually going to get charged?" "I don't know," he replied. "But that tip didn't come from a stranger." I froze. "You sent it." "I didn't want to," he said. "But after the ring, the threats, the stalking, I couldn't let her do it to someone else." I sat in silence, stunned by the simplicity of what he'd done. And then, 2 days later, she disappeared. Not online. She had already slowed her posts, but literally gone. Her apartment in Miami was left half empty. The new fiancé, the plastic surgeon with the Instagram wisdom, posted a single story before deleting his account completely. "She's gone. Don't contact me." Rumors exploded instantly. Some claimed she ran to Europe. Others said she checked herself into a clinic in Arizona under a different name. One person swore they saw her boarding a ferry in Greece. None of it was confirmed. Damon didn't comment. Neither did we. We moved on, until something arrived in my mailbox 3 months later. No stamp. No return address. Just a small black envelope, sealed in wax. Inside was a single item. A photo. It was taken through a hotel window, clearly from a distance. Damon and I were sitting at a cafe together, laughing. The timestamp in the corner was from 2 weeks ago. We hadn't even noticed anyone near us that day. There was no message, no name, no threat. Just a photo. I showed it to Damon that night. He stared at it for a long time, then slid it across the table. "I think she's watching us," I said. He didn't look surprised. "I think she never stopped." The next morning, we went to the police, but there was nothing they could do. No law had been broken. No sender to trace. No crime to charge. Just a single photo that made your skin crawl and your stomach turn. We changed our numbers. We deleted old accounts. Damon moved again, this time without telling anyone where. Even I didn't know the address. Months passed. Life tried to return to normal. And then it happened. The news came on a cold Friday morning in the form of a breaking headline. Body found in abandoned villa near coast of Marseille. Unidentified woman, suspected foul play. The photo they released was blurry, but I recognized the dress. It was the same one Savannah had worn in her original wedding announcement. Police confirmed she had checked into the villa under a false name. They also confirmed there were no signs of forced entry. No suspects. No witnesses. Just an empty room, a shattered mirror, and a hotel Bible with the first 5 pages torn out. They ruled it unexplained but non-suspicious. Damon never said a word. Not then. Not ever. I tried once, weeks later, to bring it up, to ask if he believed she had taken her own life, or if something else had happened. He looked at me with a calm, detached expression I'd never seen before. Some people don't leave, he said. They just fade in a way that feels like revenge. I didn't ask again. I never brought up her name after that night. Not to him. Not to Marcy. Not even in my own head when I couldn't sleep. But sometimes, when I walk past reflective glass, or I feel the weight of someone watching from just outside my vision, I wonder if she ever really left at all. And if the story is actually over. Or just quiet now.